What up, YouTube fam? We're live on the YouTube. Ooh, it's a hot one today. I tell you what, YouTube fam, it is hotter than Billy Elijah outside. God damn it, dude. I am sweating like a pig, as the expression goes. Which I feel is a little inappropriate considering of the stereotype that men have to face, that we're all just pigs. Fuck all that. So King Cobra, we're going to do a video response. But before we get into that, I saw an article on Bing that caught my attention. And I kind of want to address it. So you get like a 2-for-1 special here. Yes. Marijuana users, especially women, may experience higher risks of suicide, study says. I call bullshit. Now, the only suicide that you should be committing is a suicide drink. You feel me, YouTube? And speaking of drink combos, we got some Bud Light Platinum and some of that Monster. Not gonna lie, fam, I drank all that King Cobra malt liquor and it was delicious. So thank you to the fans for sending that. We got ourselves a little 6-pack of the Platinum. Yes, Bud Light's not a sponsor. Free advertising. Yes. Cheers, you crazy fuckers. It's almost the weekend. I don't even want to read this bullshit article because I have a feeling this was created by some major industries who are going to hurt if cannabis becomes legal. Okay, if you're experiencing suicidal thoughts when you smoke cannabis, that's probably because you were that depressed to begin with. Okay? And fuck suicide, dog. Smoke a joint and just take a moment to appreciate what little you do have in life. And you realize it could be worse. Pretty blue bottles. Well, I have live chat turned off just because the video response is going to get a little controversial. But before we get into that Sydney Watson video response, okay, yes. The article says a team of scientists surveyed data on more than 281,000 people ages 18 to 35 from 2008 to 2019. People were grouped into 4 categories: no cannabis use, blah, 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 blah. Well, you look at the younger generation. The younger generation, each generation becomes more depressed than the last. And we all experience depression, so don't even get it twisted. So yeah, ignore that article, dude. People who take antidepressants, period, can still experience suicidal thoughts. And you know what? Fuck suicide.
Hello? Hello?
God damn it. Ginger ASMR on YouTube. Good gravy. There's a lot of cute girls on YouTube, just to know. Yeah, buddy. But we're going to get into that Sydney Watson video response. Go through my history real quick.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how to naturally control blood sugar and naturally increase insulin sensitivity.
I feel like I'm getting...
Now, before I get this video response started, I support trans rights as long as you're not being creepy to, you know, people of a certain age. Below the age of 18, then who cares? Now, before I get this Sydney Watson video response started, we got some beer. The slow, suffocating death of female sports. That sounds pretty dramatic. And yes, it's going to be one of those videos. Sydney Watson made a video recently talking about how men who transition into women and then join women's sports and dominate it, well, there's two sides to this here coin. For a lot of women growing up, they didn't have their own sports league. They try to join men's leagues, and men tell them, no, you cannot join our league. So women had to fight for their rights to have their own sports teams. Just to have a bunch of women, or so-called women, you know, a bunch of men who got a surgery to become like a woman, but not completely a woman. You know what I'm saying? Dominate that shit. It's kind of unfair when you really think about it. It kind of gives them what you would call a performance enhancement. If you've gone through puberty as a male and you've reaped the benefits of being man and having testosterone, even outside of that, men, unfortunately, are a lot stronger than women physically. You want to call me a sexist, but it's the truth. Okay? If it's not true, then how come people are so uncomfortable with men joining women's sports as trans women? Oof. Yes, spoiler alert, this video is going to piss a lot of people off, and quite frankly, I don't care. Now, this is why I say that trans athletes should literally have their own sports league and their own sports team. That way they're not unfairly dominating the competition. Now, as a man, you are too much of a weak pussy to make it in sports as a man. So you're like, oh, okay. You're going to jump on the whole transgender wagon. I'm sort of reminded of the Strong Woman episode from South Park. But I understand where both sides are coming from. Like, I'm all for supporting trans rights, but there's a line. You start identifying as a goddamn tree, it's like, okay, maybe you need to put the glass dick down and get some psychological help for that shit.
Getting used to abject disappointment, and I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like I'm getting used to abject disappointment, and I don't know how I feel about that.
It's all part about getting older, Sydney Watson. The older you get, the more disappointed in life you become. Until you're so bitter and old, you're just waiting patiently for the sweet, eternal sleep. Fuck suicide. Living is just a slow way to die.
Hi, my name is Sydney. Welcome back to hell. And as per usual,
Welcome back to hell. I am Lord King Cobra. Fetch me the troll souls for breakfast. Yes. And as per usual, we're going to take and do ourselves a drink combo. We got some of that Monster. Coming up on the YouTube channel, I'm making a cheddar bacon mac and cheese. And I might be using one of these beers for that recipe. So stick around for that. That should be pretty freaking tasty. But rather than put bugs in it for the cooking video, I'll sprinkle them on after I make a bowl of it. That way, you know. Yes. So stick around for that cooking video whenever it happens. Monster Energy drink and Bud Light Platinum. Here we go.
Before we launch in and do the thing, this video is sponsored by Mama Surfshark. Yes. So I feel like every time I introduce a new event or topic or issue or disaster, I caveat it by saying that we've talked about this before, because modern society feels a lot like Groundhog Day, and I'd like to unsubscribe from this time period. Thank you.
Yeah, modern society does feel like Groundhog Day. We're on a repeat of stupid bullshit almost every day. And it's just like, can we just not do this crap? Arguably, what started off as the whole transgender thing progressed into being other things. Trans-disabled. That's a thing. Transracial. Cracker, what the fuck? You're seeing white dudes and white women who identify as black and then inject themselves with melatonin to make their skin look black. They'll dye their hair black. And it's like, you cannot just color your skin and hair and call yourself black. You have not faced their struggles and their hardships. And the same can be said for transgendered women. Cobra. You want to call yourself a woman, but a transgendered man who has transitioned from man to woman is not going to experience things like childbirth, periods, hysterectomies, okay, ovary cramps, menopause. Imagine being a woman, and for several decades, you fight for equality. You want to go out and join sports and do sports just like the guys, but men tell you you can't because you're a girl. So you and your girlfriends or gal pals, whatever you want to call yourself, feminists, for the lack of a better word. Not all feminists are radical psycho cunts. That's just a stereotype. No, it's the truth. Like, women have had to fight for gender equality over men, from men, for centuries. Women have had to parade in women's rights marches just to have their own female sports teams. So in a world where men pretty much dominate everything from the pay gap to fair jobs to being looked at more favorably in certain situations, you can imagine it's a bit disconcerting when women are being dominated by men pretending to be women. But it's like you call it out for what it is, and you either get labeled a transphobe or a sexist. You can't fucking win, you two, but that's the frustrating part of it. Most people are like, I am not touching this subject with a 10-foot pole. If you say you come out and support transgendered athletes, you get labeled a sexist against real women who were born cis women. But if you support them, because let's face it, you wouldn't give a baseball player steroids and then let them perform in baseball with that unfair advantage. So why should this be any different? You'd be called a fucking transphobe for that shit. Like, I support trans rights, okay? I don't physically go out of my way to harass individuals just because they're transgender. Quite frankly, like I said, I don't give a shit. As long as you're not creeping on kids, who gives a shit? Jessica Univ. No.
Yeah. And today's topic is no exception. By now, most of you will be aware to some degree about the transgender athletes participating in women's sports and the total shirt show surrounding it. Shirt.
No, it's the truth. Could you imagine being a woman and being told you can't play sports with the guys because you're a girl? So then give us our own league, they would say. And they say, no, you don't get to have your own league. So they literally have to fight for their gender equality and for their female rights just to have the same gender of that oppress them even further by pulling this crap. And this is where PC Principal in that episode of South Park is just like, man, my head hurts. You know what I'm saying? Because this is one of those topics where you're just like, do we have to? Why?
Shirt show. I'm gonna go with it. And if you haven't heard about this, I don't know what to tell you. Read a book. But there are constant developments regarding fairness, equality, women's access to particular opportunities, many of which actually I talked about in my video about the erasure of women. I became acutely aware of this issue in early 2019 when I watched the Daily Signals video about several female high school runners feeling marginalized when two transgender athletes started competing against them.
It will be the end of girls and women's only sport if we make simply gender identity the basis for eligibility for
right. You'll have men's sports and you'll have co-ed sports.
It's giving the transgender females the right to compete with biological females, and eventually.
And this is what I'm saying. Like, women back in the day, before they had their own sports league, were never given the right to compete with men in the same. That's just unfucking heard of, dog. If this were like the 1960s, and if a woman were to come out in the 1960s and say, yes, she would like to play football with her high school male students, they would tell her to go herself and to get the out of here with that shit, Nick. You know what they would tell her, and not trying to sound sexist, but they would say, honey, the cheerleading squad is that way. So imagine the history of women's suffrage. It's literally a slap in the fucking face. A lot of these women who have their own sports leagues would never be allowed to compete with men in their same teams. So why is this the other way around? You know what I'm saying? Like, serious, real talk. If women are not allowed to play on the same teams as boys, okay, then men who transition into women should not be allowed to play on the same goddamn team just because they cut their dick off and turned their nutsack inside out and got some fake titties. No, you claim to want to be treated like everyone else, but if you make a joke about trans people, everyone gets super offended. Like, you can chop your dick off, but you can't take a joke? Holy shit. And could you imagine what Selena Soli's going through? No, I don't have a problem with anyone of that nature. I don't give a shit if you're trans. A shout out to Caitlyn Jenner and Blair White. I don't care if you're trans. That's your choice. As long as you're not being creepy and weird about it, who fucking bloody well cares? But for a lot of women who were born into being a woman, who've had to struggle with being a woman and face the hardships of being a woman and womanhood, this is just one more thing that men have dominated. Well, if you call them men, you're being a transphobe. But you can change the outside, but not the goddamn inside. You could take that man and give them plastics, them would be the proper pronouns, or however they identify, attack helicopter tree, sparkly unicorn dragon. You can rearrange their outside to resemble the opposite sex, but you cannot change their DNA or their chromosomes. Now, if a woman would not be allowed to join a man's football team, then men who transitioned into women should not be allowed to play in women's sports. This is why I've said transgendered athletes need their own sports league. The problem with this is there aren't enough trans athletes out there to form teams. So it's kind of like, you either let them perform as women in a women's team, or you tell them to fuck off, and it's unfair. You know what I'm saying? In both situations like that, you either end up pissing off the trans person or pissing off women. And it's like you're going to get shot up the ass with it either way. So what do?
It's going to get to the point where the biological females will be on the sidelines watching their own sports.
It exposed the ways.
Yeah, that's the truth. You know what I'm saying? It could happen, like when women are being put on the sidelines, forced to watch men who have transitioned into women play their own sports. Could you imagine? Like, you take your transgendered activist rights feelings and put those aside for a second and ask, how would it feel to be in an actual woman's shoes? But you won't think about that because, you know, it's all about you and how special you are. It's not about anyone else's feelings. Well, when those feelings are reflected poorly, and this is the bitch of it, is there are some trans people who have ruined it for the movement in some ways. And there are a lot of cisgender assholes who have ruined it for our side too. Now, the stereotype that, oh, you're white and you're male, I bet you're racist, sexist, and misogynistic, and all this other shit, blah, 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 blah. And if we cannot speak out on these issues without being called a transphobe, then there's a goddamn problem. If you actively say you think trans people are gross, however, you do not go out of your way to harass them, like physically hurt them and torment them in real life, then it's just that, a personal opinion. No one's going to call trans people a cisphobe because they're against cisgender, okay? And the problem with this is transgendered individuals have been discriminated against just as much as women. And then you want to add some irony to the bullshit cycle of hypocrisy. You want to bitch about oppression, but here you are oppressing women.
In which colleges and high schools were handling the explosion of transgender individuals across the United States in particular, and how it might affect sports across the board, leaving many to conclude that it was and still is female athletes who ultimately lose out against biological male competitors who still have biological and physiological advantages over their female counterparts. At the same time, many transgender athletes themselves and their supporters argue that no such advantage exists.
Trans girls belong on sports teams. There is no scientific case for excluding them. And no one's saying you should exclude them, but at the same time, it's like, create your own fucking league. You know what I'm saying? Because that is completely unfair. And you want to call it what it is what it is. Like, men are genetically, physically stronger than women. Like, that's just how nature programmed men. Nature and genetics have programmed men to be stronger than women so that men may protect their woman and their offspring. It's just how men are programmed. It's genetics. Which doesn't mean shit because there are some women who are tougher than men. Regardless, it's not the point. Now picture this. You got the UFC fighting league, and here comes this 400-pound beast of a motherfucker who just got his dick chopped off and his balls turned inside out, and a pair of fake titties. And then all of a sudden it's like this dude now wants to fight in women's UFC because for some ungodly reason they weren't tough enough to hack it as a man in their own sports, and feeling insecure with themselves and feeling like they want some of that sweet female privilege. They do this crap. And the other half of the time it's because they genuinely believe they were assigned the wrong gender. And I'm not trying to crap on anyone because I can't begin to imagine the horrible shit that people who are trans go through. Like, that's gotta be tough, dude. Like, I'm not here to crap on anyone for being trans. But let's be real about this, folks. Okay, trans women should not be allowed to play alongside their fellow women in sports. It's completely unfair, especially when you're taking the whole genetics argument. Now, for a lot of people, the whole trans thing could be a little bit weird, but at the end of the day, if they're not hurting anyone or creeping on kids, who the hell cares? Oh, let me ask you this, fellas. How would it feel if the gender card was flipped? Let's say, hypothetically, that genetics decided to make women physically stronger than men. How would you feel if it was the other way around? If there was an alternate universe where men and women and their gender roles were flipped and men got treated like women and women got treated like men, vice versa. Trust me, when the opposite sex gets treated like the opposite sex, they would fucking hate it. If women got treated like men and men got treated like women, oh, trust me, ladies and gentlemen, you would fucking hate it. When you were a man, no one gave a shit if you were gross, fat, hairy, and disgusting and smelled funny. Okay? As a woman, women are put underneath more pressure on that issue. Now, women, y'all get sympathy on issues. Men, we don't. We get told as men, suck it up, you pussy, and tough it up. It's the truth. You kick a dude in the balls and everyone just laughs their ass off. You kick a woman in her coochie and everyone goes, you piece of shit. Like, women are coddled in our society to a point where it's just like, because the female form is worshipped in our society, and because women are seen as mothers and caregivers and nurturers, let's be real, people like boobs a lot more than they like dick. Let's be real about that. Punch a dude in the balls, people point and laugh at his dumb ass. Like he probably fucking deserved it, right? Punch a woman in her titties, and people look at you like you're the biggest fucking asshole. It's the fucking preach. It's the fucking truth. No, society doesn't give a fuck, dude. Like, if a woman straight up fucking punches you in the face, and you as the man lose your cool and punch her back, immediately you're the bigger asshole because that's genetics and that's just how it plays out. If men are not tougher than women, then how come society tends to frown upon the subject when men hit women? Go ahead, I'll wait.
And they should not be excluded from the sports they love because they were born in the wrong body. And thus, the battle over what's fair has become the focal point. But
Yeah, well, what is fair these days? And just because you were born in the wrong body doesn't mean you should be excluded from sports. On that same topic, women, you know how this shit feels when you're told you can't because of the way you are. You can't do this because you're a girl. Or, how is that any different than saying, well, they can't do that because they're trans? Ugh. Cobra, you are so backpedaling. Yeah, my goblet is empty. I want to grab another beer. Courtesy of Bud Light Platinum. Not a sponsor, but it can be. Bud Light, hit me up. Budweiser, somebody. Monster Energy, for fuck's sake. My point being is if trans women, men who have transitioned into women, you want to play as a woman in women's sports, then your testosterone level should be matched to that of your average woman for at least a year before you can compete. That's fair to a degree. This is also why it's just perfectly acceptable for women to just openly slap or hit men. But if we respond to that, we're the assholes. You gotta love double standards. How do you guys feel about that? Oh, look, I got my dick wet on stream. Ha ha!
seriously, when aren't we fighting over what's fair? Is anything—
No shit, Sydney Watson. Girl, you are preaching to the motherfucking choir. Right from wrong, fair or unfair will always be tragically skewed. Did you just soil yourself for me, baby? It just sounded a little wet at the end, didn't it? Oh yeah, like a gag of maggots. And you wonder why men are more prone to violence, because women can sexually assault / beat the fuck out of a man and pretty much get away with it. Then on top of that, we're told if you don't man up and kick ass and, get aggressive and shit, then you're not a real man. And on top of that, men are not allowed to express their feminine side without being judged for their sexuality and what have you. It's ridiculous.
ever fair? Not when you're this much of a bootlicker, it's not. With so many eyes on this issue, the question has become, will it ever—
No, life isn't fair, and you learn to get used to it. When I was in junior high and high school, I experienced double standards even before I was totally old enough to realize what the fuck they were. Case in point, there were certain chicks who would get pissed off at me for checking them out, but at the time I was in high school as well. And it's like when you're in high school with your fellow high school students, and some chick comes to school showing off her tits and her ass and a low-cut t-shirt and tight-ass hip-hugger jeans, And you don't want men to look, but why you dress like that? See, this is how I see it. It's because whenever a dude walks by with a muscly shirt and shows off his biceps for the ladies, do you think he can say, "Excuse me, my eyes are up here"? It's like if some woman walks up to him and says, "Hey, stud, nice biceps." Madam, I have a wife. My eyes are up here. She'd be like, "Quit being a pussy and take the compliment like a man." That's exactly how that would play out. I'm not trying to be an asshole, but it's the fucking truth. And then here's the best part. If they're not being creepy about how they stare at you, like checking you out, yeah. And then they're not being super obnoxious about it, but at the same time, they're making it painfully obvious they're checking you out. As long as they're not being creepy about it, who cares? I'll let you in on a secret, fellas. Okay. Here's another double standard that I like about the genders. It doesn't matter. You could be the nicest guy in the world, dude. The biggest heart of gold. If she thinks you're creepy, it ain't happening, slick. And that's just the truth. You know what I'm saying? Like, if women are creeped out by you, it ain't gonna happen. You gotta prove to them otherwise that you're a decent guy. Otherwise, they ain't gonna fucking go for your shit. And that's the truth. And you can usually tell when a woman's creeped out by you. If you try to send a woman flowers, you know what I'm saying? Her attitude is gonna be like, why? Oh my God, they sent me flowers. Why? Oh my God, they're so creepy. But if it's a dude she finds super attractive and the dude sends her flowers, well, her whole fucking attitude changes. Oh my God, they sent me flowers. Case in point, women that thought I was creepy in the past have actually told me, you know what? I regret rejecting Saunders in high school. And the only reason you say that is because I'm a YouTube celebrity. Kiss my Asperger's.
Ever be fair for biological men, no matter how they identify or how many hormones they've taken, to participate in women's sports?
Yes. It's never going to be fair for anyone, really, to be honest, because if you allow one side, you're going to piss off the other side. And that's just true for pretty much everything in life.
Which brings us to New Zealand's transgender weightlifter, Laurel Hubbard. You guys might want to...
Who the fuck is Laurel Hubbard?
Strap in for this one.
Strap in or strap on? Ew.
Right after we hear from today's sponsor, Surfshark.
Yes.
Next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you how to naturally control blood sugar and naturally increase insulin sensitivity.
What is this?
An intervention.
Intervention. We just went to therapy for this, and I don't even know who you are.
Listen, Sydney. It's the Surfshark VPN ads. They're a problem. Yes, a problem.
Are you multiplying? Who even is this?
All you ever talk about?
I was going to say, yeah, not trying to be a pervert, but Sydney Watson's a pretty cute of-age girl. If it was consensual and she was single, I'd throw some of this jumbo shrimp in her body. Right on the down under, yeah? Ugh. They'd be like the worst pickup line to throw to an Aussie chick. She'd look at you like, one of two things. If she thinks you're creepy, she'll be like, oh my God, that was racist towards Australians. But if she thinks you're cute, she'll be like, oh my God.
That is how Surfshark protects people's private information online. Encrypts their data. Bypasses country restrictions.
Well, yeah, that's because that's what Surfshark does. It's got more benefits than its competitors and is a great tool for getting around internet censorship.
Well, it's also a tool of the patriarchy. The patriarchy. Every day there are microaggressions being carried out against women. What's Surfshark's stance on that?
It doesn't have one. It's a VPN. Surfshark wants people to know that it can be used on as
VPN, very protected network. I'm assuming that's what that stands for.
many devices as people like from the one subscription. And if they want to sign up, they can use code Sydney to get 83% off. And
You heard that correct, folks. Surfshark VPN. Use code Sydney, coupon code Sydney to get 83% off.
3 extra months free.
And 3 extra months free? Holy shit, that's a bloody good deal.
Doesn't sound very feminist to me.
For those of you who have lives outside of politics and media,
Can't relate.
you might have missed the news that a couple
Mm, 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 mm. Holy shit, my eyes. My eyes! The kind of shit that just makes your penis retract into itself. You know what they call a reversey? Where instead of getting a full-on flaccid, yeah, you know what I'm talking about? Like when the blood flow just leaves your penis and you feel your penis shrinking into its natural unflaccid self. You're just like, nope. Nobody is buying that. That's a woman. Nobody is buying that shit for a bloody minute, dude. Caitlyn Jenner and Blair White's transition surgery is way more convincing. You know, some dudes can pull it off and some dudes just can't. Well, there is one advantage to fucking trans women. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you got a dude who literally got a sex change, they ain't gonna get pregnant, so there you go. But I think I'd rather fucking stay single for the rest of my life before I commit to that, unless I have the kind of money to throw it out on my dream house, in which case, then I wouldn't be so worried about it. In fact, why the fuck am I bitching about my dry spell? I hear about all these poor simp asshole men who are turning into incels because they're getting screwed over in child custody support funds. Can't say I blame them for being a little bit salty about that. It's like, well, when men sit there and control the minimum wage gap, when the wage gap is sexist against women, and you want to sit there and bitch and complain about child support laws, I'm like, well, that just evens the playing field. Which I get it. But at the same time, for a lot of men, you know what they're going to say? Why should anyone care? She's just going to ask me for $40. And you'll give it to her because, hey, you're taught this illusion that if you make your woman happy and you give in to her fucking demands, no matter how ridiculous they may be, she'll suck your dick and you two will be just the happiest couple ever. Okay, no. If she's unhappy with herself, then no amount of flowers, diamonds, chocolates, massages, pussy eating, pink bath bombed, romantic baths, romantic dinners are going to fix that shit. Okay, I got to play the video. I can't. Oh, God, dude, no.
Hubbard is confirmed as the first transgender athlete to
Laurel Hubbard.
to compete at the Olympics.
To quote Ron White, things that make you go, "Buh." When I say some dudes can pull it off, and some dudes can't. Like, I'm sorry, but Caitlyn Jenner's and freaking Blair White's transition is more convincing. At least until you hear Caitlyn Jenner's masculine voice and you're just like, nope. That's, You know, good on Caitlyn, man. She's happy with what she has become. Cool. You know, more power to you, girl. Get it. You know what I'm saying? I'm not here to judge people for being trans. I'm here to judge people for taking advantage of the system. You feel me on this, YouTube? Furthermore, I can't understand why the fuck somebody would want to be like that, because I am proud of what I got between my legs. I tell you what.
Games in Tokyo in July. Hubbard is 43, transitioned in 2013, and is in New Zealand's women's super heavyweight class.
Kind of reminds me of the principal from Matilda, this person. Is that a little too far? Ah, fresh meat. Are you a pig, Amanda? Well, my mommy says they make me look sweet and innocent. Well, your mommy's a twit. If you know the movie Matilda, then you probably know that's one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. It's a good movie. And yeah, Miss Honey, I wouldn't mind sticking my hand in that honey jar, if you know what I mean. Now, speaking of transgendered athletes in the movie Matilda, you can do it, Bruce!
Why though? I'm not gonna lie, there's a couple jokes I could make here, but I'm feeling spicy. And that wouldn't be nice. So
well, could you okay, put yourself in an actual born cis woman shoes. You spent your whole life being told that men have dominated and controlled everything. Your mother, your grandmother, your great-grandmother, and your great-great-grandmother, and so on and so forth, who have to spend generations fighting the patriarchy and quite literally fighting for female equality in a world that is completely run by men and this sexist attitude of, oh, you're a girl kind of thing. Just to be told, oh, guess what? These men, yeah, you know that thing that you women have had to fight for, this thing called gender equality, having your own female sports teams? Yeah, that's going to be dominated by men from now on. And if you got a problem with that, we'll call you a transphobe and a bigot.
I'm just gonna leave it at this.
Holy shit, it's Bigfoot!
Now, no doubt the transgender lobby sees this as a great step towards inclusivity and equality for transgender athletes. In this...
Now, when I found out that Blair White, the famous YouTuber, was transgender, I was like, no. Bull motherfucking shit. So whoever did Blair White's transgender realignment surgery did a pretty fucking good job, dude, because that shit had me fooled. Now, there's two kinds of trans women. There's the one like Blair White where you're just like, bullshit, she's trans. Or two, you see the other kind, like in the athlete that Sydney Watson's talking about here, where it's just like, you're either really a really ugly butch woman or you're a dude trying to pull off chick, and it's just like, yeah. Like, you can chop the dude's dick off, turn it inside out, fucking cut out their balls and fucking make a fake vagina and plaster on some fake tits and then pump them full of estrogen like some mad Frankenstein goddamn experiment and hope for the best. Still gonna be a dude. At the end of the day, like, your chromosomes, your DNA. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, yeah, you're a chick now. Cool, and I'm Tony Hawk. Where the fuck's my skateboard?
In this case, you have an individual who is rising to arguably one of the most.
But you want to get offended because someone misidentified your pronouns. Beg pardon, but like, not everyone's gonna be like, so, sir, what's your religion and your pronouns so I don't accidentally offend you? Yes, I like Bud Light Platinum. That's number 2, just about down the gullet.
Prestigious positions in sports, participating in the Olympics, for lifting up heavy things and putting them back down again. I once picked up something heavy, my hatred and disdain for men. However, in the...
Yeah, you ever notice that, YouTube? That when women have this hatred and disdain for men, people just shrug it off and laugh like, oh, aren't you adorable? But when men do this crap to women, it's like, how dare you, you incel piece of shit? Huh? There's a reason why. It's because the whole men are tougher than women thing, and because women have had to face microaggression and oppression for centuries. That's why women are allowed to hate men, but us men, we're not allowed to hate women without being called a sexist, misogynistic piece of shit. And as men speak out against this crap, they get told you need to bow down to your female overlords, your sperm donating, money giving to her piece of shit. She demands chocolate, fine wine, diamonds, good cooking, cuddles, kisses, a good pussy eating job. And yeah, the occasional fuck when she's in the mood. Well, guess what? Women are the gatekeepers of sex. Men are the gatekeepers to a relationship. This is why when men aren't getting laid, they get told you need to get laid. And when women don't have a boyfriend, you hear their female friends say, girl, you need to find yourself a man.
Their haste to feel one way or another, it seems that people often forget about the women who are being pushed out of their own sports to accommodate this new social emphasis and shift.
Yeah, could you imagine women being pushed out of their own sports league? The same sports league that women before them have had to march in like women's rights activist type marches just to have a bunch of dudes once again take over. This pretty blue bottles. YouTube. 4 minutes and 55 seconds, and we got 17 minutes to go. Here we go.
Social media, the image of a young female lifter started making the rounds, claiming that this is the woman who would have made it to her first Olympics were it not for Hubbard. Well,
yes, there was a woman, okay, competing in the Olympics as a heavyweight lifter, female champion, and she would have made it to the Olympics as one of the first females to do such Had it not been for freaking the Hubbard person, so this Hubbard transgendered athlete person stole that from her basically. And for women to be the first woman anything, it's just huge. You look at Kamala Harris, the first female vice president of color. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, dude. Can I just twist this off? Yeah, look at that. I've been using the fucking lighter to pop it off, and it's like, I don't even need to do that. Yeah, I want to work on layering some vocals after this video response. Yes.
It certainly appears that way from documentation like this. I have to confess that I'm no expert at the selection process here, and I don't want to definitively.
Tokyo 2020 Olympics, the ones that happened, what, last year? So, and it just gets worse from here. You know this, the chick that Laurel Hubbard beat unfairly? Like, do you know why the woman she was going up against does what she does? Get this. The athletes that would have made it if it hadn't been for this Laurel Hubbard person, she got into weightlifting to help her deal with the stress of being sexually assaulted. So it just adds like an extra level of bullshit to the whole situation. Could you imagine being a woman? You were sexually assaulted, raped, and to combat with that issue, you start lifting weights to feel good about yourself, getting into your sport, you know, as a woman, competing as a woman in your own sports. You know what I'm saying? So for her, it's like, oh, wait, men have sexually assaulted her, and now a man is taking over her spot at the Olympics? Dude, no.
Make that claim. But regardless, the fact remains that if it isn't this 21-year-old weightlifter losing out, it is certainly someone else. People often forget that when it comes to sports, individuals train their whole lives to be good enough to qualify for these specific kinds of games. They work tirelessly to even be considered. I think most of us who've cared about anything deeply.
Yeah, regardless of what gender you are, if you're training for the fucking Olympics, YouTube, you're going to work your ass off to get to that point. You're going to be in the best shape of your life. You're going to train the hardest you've ever trained. Like Goku and Vegeta in a hyperbolic time chamber, like wanting to become Super Saiyan God at this point, kind of. You know what I'm saying?
We can at least understand on some level the pain that these athletes will be feeling having these opportunities ripped out from under them. Not because they're not good enough, but because they're competing against people who have arguably physiological advantages that they simply will never have.
Yes, the truth. Losing to an opponent because they have features and genetics that arguably make them superior athletes. Not because you're not good enough, because when it comes to things like sports and overall physical strength, men dominate this shit. And I hate it because, you know, it's the truth. You want to call me a sexist for saying it, but it's the truth. If men do not dominate in sports almost 9 times out of 10 better than women, then how come we don't have a unisex UFC fighting league? I'll wait. Yeah, you got Ronda Rousey versus some 400-pound muscly motherfucker with arms bigger than her head. Yay, gender equality.
This is how some female athletes have described their feelings towards this topic, and towards Hubbard as a primary example. In saying this, I realize it's also quite difficult to conceptualize just how different men and women operate when it comes to individual sports like weightlifting. For anyone with a man in their life, just think about what it looks like when he opens jars for you, because sometimes they're really tough, or changes your tires.
Yeah, it changes your tires. You know, ladies, I sympathize with you when it comes to the whole gender-based stereotypical crap. Because us men, we gotta deal with our stereotypes too, missus. Oh, can you fix the goddamn sink? Can you change a goddamn tire? Can you go into the woods and build a goddamn cabin with nothing but a hacksaw and an axe and a bunch of fucking trees? Now, whenever you hear this thing like, oh, change a tire, okay. Changing a goddamn tire is not that fucking hard. If you don't have the arm strength to do it, well, then you call a tow truck. But if you have a tire iron in your car, a spare tire, and a little jack, you stick the jack underneath the car, give it a couple of pumps, jack the car up, and you take your tire iron to the lug nuts on your tire's hubcap and you turn it until it's loose. And then when you take the tire off, you'll see these little screws poking out in a circle. Okay? You take the broken tire off, put it in the trunk, and then you take the spare tire and throw it on there, and then you tighten the shit back on there as tight as you can make it. Okay, changing a tire is not rocket science. Even I can do that shit, and I'm autistic. But yeah, us men, we deal with the social stereotypes of being a man. You gotta hide your emotions. Can you fix anything besides yourself a sandwich? Okay. You know, when she says, babe, you should get a six-pack, you look sexier. So you show back up with the six-pack of Bud Light, like, here you go, babe, I got a six-pack. Like, oh my God, can you fix anything besides fixing yourself a sandwich? Nope. Now, instead of your girlfriend making you a sandwich, why don't you make her a sandwich for a change? Or better yet, as a couple, you learn to cook and clean together so it gets done faster and you spend quality time as a couple. In fact, there are seven things you can do to have a healthy and happy romantic relationship. It's guaranteed to give you what you want. If you want to know the secret, 1, more sex or as much intimacy as you're capable of. 2, you gotta love and respect each other. 3, never go to bed angry. 4, better communication. 5, You got to be attentive to each other and what each other like and don't like, dislikes and likes. Be attentive to each other's needs. 6, did I already say don't go to bed angry? Because if I didn't, don't go to bed angry. And 7, no matter how daunting the task may be, you cook and clean together. Make it a couples activity. Hell, when you're cleaning the house and you got no one over but you and your other half, you strip down to each other's underwear, you got a nice bottle of wine, and you make it sexy, fun cleaning time. You're throwing some tunes, you're dancing, you're having a good time. And when you and your other half clean the house together, it gets done faster. Okay? Now, after you get done cleaning your entire house / apartment, wherever you live in, the sheets are changed, you got a clean house. Now that your house is clean and you've all cooked yourself a delicious meal to eat, after you've got done eating your supper and your house is clean and spotless, fuck like jackrabbits or whatever you're capable of. And just go as long as you can until both of you are too tired to fucking move and your legs feel like jelly and you're just like, fuck. You know the kind of sex I'm talking about, the good adult consensual sex that's just so good. You have a hard time standing and your legs are wobbling. And all you could do is be like, shit, I'm going to put my pants on and go smoke a cigarette because that shit was hot. The thing you have to realize, YouTube, is, the sex is just a perk of the relationship. Everything else should come first. And you gotta make your other half work for it. You know what I'm saying? Don't just willy-nilly give it out. You gotta make each other work for it. You know what I'm saying?
Or does literally any other physical thing for you because your little itty bitty twig arms are useless? Yeah, I think that only applies to you. So let's take a look at a tweet thread that I think exemplifies this pretty well. Hubbard first debuted in the female category in 2017.
Okay. So Emma Hilton at Fond of Beatles writes, Laurel Hubbard debuted in the female category in 2017 and posted a new world record in the W35 / super heavyweight category. At the IWF Masters the same year. Yeah, that's the truth. Like, you want to get pissed off at baseball players for taking steroids because they have an unfair advantage over the game. I mean, how is it any different? Because, when you're a transgendered athlete, you have no balls. And when you take steroids, your balls shrink. Just asking for a friend.
And posted a new world record in the W35 super heavyweight category at the IWF Masters that same year. For this performance, Hubbard was named
Transgender weightlifter Laurel Hubbard sets master world records. Holy crap. Do you have any idea how hard women have to work in a world dominated by us boys, I tell you what, I actually feel bad for women in that respect. Because men are told if you're not tougher than women, then you're a huge pussy and you're weak. If women are not tougher than men, they get called weak and they get told you're not a real woman. You got to be a strong woman. So both sides are inherently being pinned against each other in this battle of the sexist crap. And then they turn around and bitch about how the other side doesn't understand what the other side goes through. Outside of like gender-based issues, like women have periods, men don't kind of thing. Outside of that, yes, everything else is pretty much the same. Women and men are pretty much the same, minus the fact that women go through certain things that men don't. And that's the goddamn truth. And when you start making the connections like this, that the only thing that separates women and men is gender and what their bodies do, outside of that, women and men are pretty much exactly the same. In so many ways, it's scary. You know what I'm saying? Women compete with other women, men compete with other men, and then they compete with each other. The whole women are just catty towards each other. Yeah, men do that crap too. It's the truth.
The best lifter in the entire female competition, all ages and weight categories. Her lift total of 280 kilograms absolutely smashed her category competitors.
Jesus Christ, 280 kilograms. That's not too shabby, man. I don't know what I can bench press. And quite frankly, I don't care. I got some dumbbells that I work out with, and my arms are pretty big. They're not as big as they could be, but they're big enough to where I feel confident about myself, and that's enough.
It wouldn't have been out of place in the corresponding male category. In fact,
yeah, but 280 kilograms. Okay, if a woman is unable to lift that, if every woman that transgendered female is competing against simply just cannot lift that much weight, like, eesh. In fact, Hubbard's 2017 lift was entirely routine over 10 years of the male competition and a huge outliner in the female competition over the same 10 years. Basically saying you reaped the benefits of being a man and then took advantage of a politically correct system.
Hubbard's 2017 lift was entirely routine over the 10 years of male competition, and a huge outlier in the female competition over the same 10 years. For those asking, this first incomplete part of the story shows how, controlled for age, Hubbard is lifting well outside the female range. The second part is, of course, that Hubbard has earned an Olympic spot despite her advanced age. The same writer of these tweets, who is also coincidentally a developmental biologist, also noted that at 43, the chances of a female appearing in super heavyweight Olympic weightlifting, 1 in 308,000. Hubbard is 3 times more likely to be struck by lightning than a 43-year-old female is to.
Yeah, another. Holy crap! So you're telling me that this Hubbard person is 43 years old? and that the likelihood of a 43-year-old female heavyweight being allowed to compete in Olympic weightlifting is 1 in 308,000. Hubbard is 3 times more likely to be struck by lightning than a 43-year-old female is to appear in this event. Yeah, no shit. And this is exactly why women are coddled in our society versus men are told to toughen it up, because men are physically tougher than women and like physical strength wise. This is why women are coddled in our society beyond the fact that the female form is worshipped in our society. And people see women as mothers and nurturers and caregivers. And just because men are genetically tougher than women doesn't mean shit. I've seen some scrawny ass pussy motherfucker piss poor excuses for men. Scrawny ass fuck. They think they're hard, but they're really just fucking like a toy dog who jumps up and tries to act all big, but really their bark is bigger than their bite. You ever notice how men have to prove themselves because they feel demasculated if they don't? It's like, what are you trying to prove, man? Nobody cares.
Here in this event. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that we used to be more likely to be struck by lightning than be subjected to a lot of things. But then the world lost its freaking mind, and now being a tree is a gender.
What? Okay, yeah, I said that earlier. Being a tree is now considered a gender. The world has lost its freaking mind, and I feel like I'm the only sane motherfucker on the planet, apart from a few select individuals. You're serious? Now, this can't be a thing. Being a tree is now considered a gender? Okay, that's a plant. That's a completely different species of living things. What? Okay, stop. Humans cannot be trees. You know why humans can't be trees? Because we're not rooted to the ground, where the only thing that moves us is the wind. Or whether or not we get sunlight and water, like Jesus fucking Christ. People are trying way too hard to be special, and look at me, I want attention. Like, fuck you. Like, you identify as a tree, you might want to lay off the acid for a bit. Like, you got some of that shit that made Jimi Hendrix trip balls and he took too much of it, and you're just like, who the fuck sits there and says they identify as a goddamn tree? What the actual flying fuck? What?
Hi, it's a really great time for my mothership to come collect me right now. Anyway, this is why I personally believe that Hubbard is the perfect example of why this question of fairness is actually very easily answered. Let's take, for example, Tracy Lambrick.
Who's Tracy Lambrick?
Super heavyweight competitor who, during the Commonwealth Games, was asked to make way for Hubbard.
This is what Tracy Hambrick had to say when Ms. Hubbard, if you will, she was told to fucking make way Ugh, Jesus Christ. I can't begin to imagine. When she was told to drop the category because Laurel Hubbard was obviously going to be their number one super, it was heartbreaking, like super soul destroying, the Olympian told TVNZ. And the only fucking reason, and King Cobra JFS is gonna fucking tell it like it is. The only fucking reason why this happened is because a bunch of people are trying to virtue signal how woke they are. Like, look, everybody, we support trans rights no matter how fair it is for fair or unfair it is for cis women. And Jesus fucking Christ, it's annoying as shit. Now, could you imagine being a woman living in a male-dominated society? You train your whole fucking life to be in the Olympics, to lift weights, and to be the fucking heavyweight champion of women's weightlifting. I almost said male, women, whatever. You know what I'm saying. Weightlifting champion. And to be told you have to drop the category because a man chopped his dick off and got fake tits, and that makes him brave. So guess what? Sucks to be you. Once again, you just got screwed over by the man. How does that feel?
Told to drop the category because Laurel was obviously going to be their number one super, it was heartbreaking. Like,
this is one of those touchy subjects. Like, if you say you support the idea of trans athletes competing alongside their fellow women, you get called a sexist because those aren't real women. Those are men who got surgery. You know what I'm saying? You can stick chicken feathers up your ass. That don't make you a chicken, to quote a famous comedian. You call me an asshole? I don't give a shit. Suck my balls. Yeah. That's a familiar sound. You'll hear it in the new album when it drops. Yes.
super soul destroying. Or for Geiger Stowers, a woman who began lifting to cope with surviving sexual abuse, who won a gold medal at the 2018 Commonwealth Games because Hubbard was ineligible to participate due to injury. Probably not surprising to too many people, but the following year, Hubbard beat Stowers at the Pacific Games.
The only reason you won, the only reason you fucking won that is because the trans athlete was not able to perform. What? It just goes to show you how truly sexist our society is towards women. It's a little twist top. I didn't even need to fucking bust out the fucking wire just to be all fancy with it. Like, no, you piece of shit, get in there.
Taking gold while she took silver. These few examples illustrate how quickly the issue of fairness becomes apparent due to the participation of a single biologically male athlete in a women's category. It's important to remember that female athletes
This is where a lot of people are like, this is completely unfair. At the end of the day, they want to call themselves female, but everyone else is going, dude, you're still a dude. You're just a dude who got some fake tits and a fake pussy. You're not a real female. You weren't born a woman. You've never had to physically experience growing up as a woman. There's a reason why there's differences based off of our gender. Well, the idea of gender concept is being challenged because a bunch of dudes decide to chop their dick off and they're being called stunning and brave, but the second you go to express your feminine side without transitioning, you get called a faggot. I'm like, how the fuck does that work?
Athletes testify that this male presence impacts them in many areas, such as anxiety surrounding why they should even bother, all the way up to the loss of a higher placement or achievement that they otherwise might have had. And this isn't just about athletic performance in and of itself. Of course, that's a huge part of this, but let's consider our inability to even talk about this logically. Weightlifters have allegedly been told to keep quiet about Hubbard, for example, and have had—
Wait, what? So now you got censorship on top of it? Former Olympic female weightlifters told to be quiet about transgender people competing for Olympics. Jesus Christ. Could you imagine how pissed off real women must be about this issue? Being told their whole life you'll never be as good as the boys. Being told your whole goddamn fucking life as a female, born female, who identifies as female, you're never going to be as good as the boys. And you fight to prove them wrong. Just to have a boy come in with a chopped off wiener and some fake tits going, they identify as women, so what do? To be quiet about the whole transgender people competing for Olympics? Okay. Let me just be frank with you, YouTube. I've had a couple beers. I'm going to be brutally honest with you. I am all for transgender people competing in the Olympics. However, they should have their own goddamn league. That way it's fair for the women who are competing in their own fucking sports. And then that way the transgendered people get their own special league. And everyone's happy with that. You don't have a bunch of dudes who have reaped the benefits of testosterone. I love having testosterone. I fucking love it. Kiss you some motherfucker. No, but seriously, you're not going to have men taking advantage of a hypocritical, fucking two-faced, sexist society's broken, overly accepting system. Now, we gotta draw the line somewhere, YouTube. And I draw the line at transgender. Okay? This whole transracial, trans-disabled bullshit can fuck off. And there are people out there who use this whole fucking argument to support sickos who do things to people who play on the playground, as Sidney Watson would put it, and that's just nope. I've heard people make that argument, you know what I'm saying, that, well, if people are allowed to be gay and trans, then people should blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, dude, nope, we're not going down that rabbit hole. Fuck you. Fuck Chimos.
Had to accept that there is nothing that they can do. So we take opportunities away from women, crush them at their own sports, and then deny them the ability to talk about it.
That's about the half of it. How did she say that? Let's rewind.
They can do. So we take opportunities away from women.
Yeah, you take opportunities away from women.
Crush them at their own sports,
And crush them at their own sports.
then deny them the ability to talk about it.
And then you deny them the ability to bitch about it. What? That's like a triple fuck you, man. Fucking but that's the fucking truth, dude. Like, Jesus Christ. Could you imagine as a dude what that would be like for an actual woman? No, you can't. You're more focused on your snowflake ass. You're transgender, so everyone's supposed to bow down and kiss your ass and just tell you how fucking special you are. Like I said, this video is going to piss a lot of people off. But for the right reasons. Like, oh my God, Cobra's a fucking sexist, this and that, phobe, asshole, blah, blah, blah. Fuck off. No, Cobra has the balls to tell it like it is and not give a fuck who gets offended. And it's just like, dude, that kind of realism pisses people off. YouTube. And by turning the chat off, I can focus on the video response and not, oh, this person's calling me this person's spamming. Ban, block, delete.
I present to you the modern radical left, ladies and gentlemen. I mean...
Cheers, Sydney. That's the goddamn truth. The radical left is just as ridiculous as the radical right. This is why I'm a goddamn independent and I think for myself. I'm the kind of dude that supports marijuana being legal. I support abortion rights and gun rights. And if that triggers you, kiss my American ass. I get so sick and tired of the goddamn government telling us, oh, you can't abort your child, you can't have an AR-15, or you can't smoke cannabis. And I'm just like, if we're being responsible with it, who the fuck cares? And we do need some stricter, controlled, you know what I'm saying? Like, if you want to buy an AR-15, no bump fire stocks. Fuck bump fire stocks. 30-round clips or less. No fully automatic. And stricter background checks for assault weapons. You want to do some research, people. The Winchester lever action and a standard AR-15 use the same cartridge and hold the same amount of ammunition. And the Winchester lever action killed just as many people as any AR-15, but you don't see people trying to ban that gun now, do ya? You know, the only reason why people hate AR-15s is because of all the mass shootings where the fucking stereotypical white asshole used it. And because it looks like a big, bad, scary military weapon. Now, I've had friends who have had AR-15s, so I've actually shot an AR-15 on the shooting range. And yeah, just like any gun on the shooting range where it's safety first, guns are fun to shoot, period, regardless of what you're shooting. But if any other gun would have been used outside of the AR-15, that same gun would have gotten a bad name, period. And it's a well-known fact that knives are used to kill people a lot more than guns, because statistically speaking, knives make less noise and less of a mess. And when you Google the statistics of which people use more guns versus knives, which kills people more, and when the fucking radical libtard fucking leftist cocksuckers who hate guns see that knives actually kill people more than guns do, it completely pisses them off. Well, it's the truth, but we're not here to talk about gun rights or your Second Amendment rights, which are in the Constitution, by the way. You know, when they say the right to bear arms, it's the right to bear them responsibly. That's where a lot of people get it twisted. These radical gun nuts fucking piss me off. I love guns just as much as the next true-blooded American. However, we got to be more responsible with those things. And it's no different than some dickhead who's texting and driving, and then he fucking causes a 20-car pileup, and it's like you don't see assholes going, we need to ban cell phones.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the other part of me is over here thinking, where are all the feminists?
Yeah, my point exactly. Even the feminists, even the fucking feminists are at a loss for words. Because the feminists try to speak up against this and be like, hey, wait a minute, this is like letting baseball players with steroids compete and then making up some bullshit excuse of this is how they identify, so therefore you have to let them perform and give them an unfair advantage. Otherwise, you're a fucking steroid phobe. It's the same principle, and that shit would never fucking fly in our society. Fucking Michael Phelps gets kicked off the swim team in the Wheaties box for smoking weed. Are you fucking kidding me, YouTube?
Part of the problem here too, and I've said this before, is that it feels like there's really nothing in place to safeguard female athletes.
That's kind of the truth. People are more concerned about safeguarding transgendered athletes, but what about the female athletes they're competing against? There's no safeguarding for them. If there are no feminists who will speak out against this issue, then I will be the male feminist to do so. And this is just my attempt at trying to understand both sides of the argument, as I normally do. I mean, rightfully so. If I got told, well, Cobra, you couldn't play sports because you have Asperger's and Tourette's and ADHD and you're socially awkward, I would feel a little pissed off about it. And if I had my own, like, Special Olympics team, and then you had some asshole who pretended to be special needs just so they can compete in the Special Olympics because they can't dominate in regular Olympics, and they got recognized for it even though they don't actually have it, I'd be a little salty about it. So, you know what I'm saying? I kind of sympathize with women in this respect. Well, they call me an asshole for saying that, but that falls underneath the category of trans. You got people who are trans disabled. So what's next? If we allow men who are pretending to be females to compete in sports against women, what's next? Are we going to allow some dickhead off the street who says, oh yeah, he's got autism and Down syndrome, and he should be allowed to compete in Special Olympics because he identifies as disabled? That's the fucking truth. There were so many motherfuckers out there who'd be like, that would never happen because unless you're diagnosed with that shit, you can't just say you have it. Welcome to the world of being trans disabled. There were motherfuckers out there who pretend to be in a wheelchair because they want to be included and feel special. And they will literally get surgeries to remove a section of their spine just so they can say they're disabled. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, there are people who are born like that who wish they could walk, you insensitive piece of shit. Breathe. Now, sorry, I watched a couple of YouTubers who are physically handy-capable, if that's the polite word of saying it, and they were born that way. And they probably, some part of them wishes they weren't like the way they are, but they can't help it. That's just how they were born. And just to have people who are like, yeah, they choose that, so therefore, you know, it's like, dude, you're an insensitive prick.
While some might argue that there is in fact plenty of regulation, it really doesn't feel like there is. Several other transgender women athletes have begun competing against biological women. Many have previously competed against men in the past, and some of whom have aged out of the male category. Valentina Petrillo, and also, just side note guys, there's a lot of complicated names that I have to say here, and I'm not that clever, so don't tease me in the comments. And if you do, only say really funny stuff, because them's the rules. Anyway, this is an example of someone who, according to the BBC,
I kind of feel like if you're going to be trans and that's kind of your shtick, then you have the right to inform people that you're trans and that you're not a real woman. Otherwise, you're basically attempting rape. Because think about it. If you go to fuck some other dude and you don't tell that dude that you're a woman who was originally a female, and if the dude's not gay or into fucking other dudes, or he's not into trans people, you just gotta be like, you know what, this is how you are. got the last beer for the stream. I'm going to save the other one for a dank-ass cooking video. You know, I feel like that's kind of fair, to be honest. If you're a woman who's transitioned from being a man to a woman, that's your responsibility to inform your of-age dates that this is who you are. If you can't accept that, then get the fuck on. That just makes it easier for you and your potential partner.
Is now 47 and recognizes that this is her last chance to compete in the Paralympics, being that Pachillo is blind. In fact,
okay, what? So this transgender athlete is blind on top of it. That sucks, dude. I got a friend. I have a couple of friends who are legally blind. And I consider myself incredibly grateful that I've been able to have surgery that makes my eyes see better. You know what I'm saying? There are some individuals out there who don't get that. But regardless if you're blind or not, like, you're still at an unfair advantage. You're 47 years old and you've spent, like, how many years reaping the benefits of testosterone? Ugh, 7 minutes left.
it was only last September that she ran her first official race as a female para-athlete at the Italian Paralympic Championship, where she won gold in the 100-meter, 200-meter, and 400-meter events. Considering all of this, some outlets also claim that Pachillo is still listed as male on identification, which kind of gives me Zuby energy. I'm not gonna lie. You know, for those of you who aren't familiar, the guy who identified as a woman and then...
What? Zuby. Yeah, Zuby. This person who literally identified as female, got the surgery to become female, and then transitioned back into male. Side note, that can't be healthy for your genetics or your biological makeup. I do have one more beer after this, but I want to save that for a cooking video that I'm doing. I'm gonna make some cheddar bacon mac and cheese. People haven't seen a cooking video in a hot minute. A couple of fans sent me some goblin-shaped mac and cheese. And I thought to myself, how can we make this into a recipe? I got a bunch of shredded cheddar cheese. And I got some bacon. Okay. And yeah, save a beer for the recipe. And I'm not going to use milk to make it turn into mac and cheese. I'm going to use butter because I'm a fat kid at heart. So what can I say? So stick around for that deliciousness.
promptly beat the women's deadlift record and then went back to identifying as a man.
And that's the kind of crap that pisses a lot of biological females off. Is you get these dudes, in the rare case of Zuby, who go on to identify as female, kick every female's ass in the competition, and then be like, psych, and then they identify as the original sex they were born.
Yeah, him. This conversation will inevitably always bring us back around to the discussion about the biological differences between men and women, which definitely exist. Don't let the libs tell you otherwise. I don't see any men are.
Mm-hmm. You want to say don't let the libs tell you otherwise? Yeah, don't let any side tell you how it is. Form your own conclusion. This is why being an independent is so freeing. It's a relief. You're not letting some cult following of either Democrat or Republican deciding how you think. You think for yourself. You're a free thinker. Don't let the extremes of either side ruin your opinion of that political party, etc.
Over here trying to squeeze out watermelon-sized meat bags from their nether regions. Wow, Sydney. Thank you. That is a pleasant image. How can you squeeze a watermelon out of the nether region? It's in Europe.
Fucking Sydney wants and sense of humor.
On the other hand, there are transgender advocates and researchers who argue that there is no significant difference between biological women and transgender women after a year or several years on hormones. Or at least there is not enough of a significant difference for it to make an impact on equality and fairness.
Okay. I'm sorry, I support transgender rights 1000%. But that's just, I'm sorry, but that's just not natural, dude. You are Frankensteining these people, for a lack of a better term. Like, I'm not going to go out of my way to harass trans people unless they're harassing kids. Outside of that, I don't care. Like, you want to chop your dick off and call yourself a woman? There you go. Do your thing, love. But, YouTube.
This, in part, may have been informed by the 2015 decision by the International Olympic Committee, also known as the IOC, to allow transgender athletes to compete as a woman if their testosterone levels are below a certain threshold.
Yes. That's where they're trying to put regulation. Like, if you want to compete as a woman, then your testosterone needs to be that of a woman's levels. Otherwise, you're just taking advantage of a piss-poor system, to be honest. God, I love being a man. Yes.
Although in further reading, I have read that that level is still actually higher than biological women's testosterone levels. Whether or not that's actually the case, I'm not entirely sure. It's also worth noting that allegedly males are allowed to compete in female events without undergoing surgery to remove their testes.
Wait, what? Okay. Stop the fucking presses. Men are allowed to compete in women's sports and identify as trans without removing their testes? Holy shit! This is why cis women are pissed off about this issue. It's bad enough that they themselves are being told, you as a woman cannot compete with men in the same sport. You have to have your own league. As soon as they ask for their own league, they get told, no, you can't have it. So they fight for their equality and they get what they want just to have men dominate yet another part of the female life. I want to go outside and have a cigarette because this is a lot to take in, YouTube. Holy shit! Yo, my cheddar bacon mac and cheese video is gonna be dank. Tune in for that shit. Like you're a college student or you like unhealthy, high calorie food. Yes. Now, I'm not going to be putting bugs in the recipe just because that's a little weird. But I'll take some of the bugs that my fans have sent me in care packages, the snack food, you know, with the bugs they make in the packages, or like assorted type, you know what I'm saying? I put that shit in a bowl and eat it for YouTube. But outside of that, no, that's not going in the first initial cook of it. No, I got my recipe planned out inside here, and you should be able to achieve it with any form of mac and cheese, to be honest. I'm gonna fucking charge up my fucking goddamn cell phone and film a goddamn cooking video. I'm gonna pre-cook the bacon so it goes a little bit quicker. Yes. And we're gonna save the last beer out of this 6-pack of Bud Light Platinum to cook with. We're gonna cook the noodles in some of that virgin olive oil and some beer, and then repeat the steps when the cheese is in there. So it's just extra layer of flavor. Stuffed with bacon and cheddar cheese and buttery noodles cooked in beer. Oh my freaking good. YouTube. My cooking can be described as one word. American. Now the recipe I'm going to make for YouTube can be used on any form of mac and cheese. It doesn't have to be goblin shaped. Yes. Maybe using a shit ton of butter or country crock to make the cheese sauce form to your fucking noodles is a bit unhealthy, but that's why you gotta live life to the fullest. YouTube.
On the other hand, of course, there are those who argue that there are significant differences between biological women and transgender women.
Yes, there are a lot of differences between transgendered women and biological women. As I've stated before, transgendered women are never going to experience menopause or hysterectomies for that matter, something that real women have to deal with if the circumstances are permitting. And I honestly, as a man, I respect women, even if they don't respect me. You know, you could be the biggest cunt to me on the planet, and I'm like, well, that's your opinion. You have a nice day. Oh, wait, let me do that with the hats. Okay, yes, got the flat side, the point in the front. It's like, well, you have a nice day, madam. Sorry you feel that way.
2019 paper called Trans Women in Elite Sport, Scientific and Ethical Considerations looked at the IOC guidelines and determined that they are exceedingly unfair to female athletes.
I got a couple flies in my apartment. It flew in through the window when I opened the window earlier to catch a cool breeze. And it's like, motherfucker.
Researchers explain many physiological differences between men and women.
Okay, the contrast to major female hormones, estrogens, can have effect that disadvantage female athletes' athletic performance. For example, women who have a wider pelvis, changing the hip structure significantly between the sexes. Pelvis shape is established during puberty and is driven by estrogen and different angles resulting from the female pelvis leads to decreased joint rotation and muscle recruitment, ultimately making them slower. Yeah, that's what pisses me off about genetics. Like when a woman goes through puberty, she gets that, that little dip in her hip. You know what I'm talking about? Yes. If she's not like 400 pounds, morbidly obese, that little curve in her hip, that feminine figure, yes. And unfortunately, because of that curve in her hip, the joints in her legs are going to move slower. So you can bitch about it all day, every day, but that's just genetics. You either accept it or make the best of it as a woman or a man or whatever you identify, whatever the fuck. This is wise we would have in this conversation. Now I got some apple wood smoked bacon from Oscar Mayer for the new cooking video, but that's neither here nor there.
Women. For example, they reference how women have a wider pelvis, which leads to decreased joint rotation and muscle recruitment, and ultimately.
Why do women have a wider pelvis when it comes to the genders? They do so because that gives them the ability for childbirthing. This is Education 101 YouTube. The reason why women achieve a wider pelvis during puberty is because it's to prepare them for having kids when they are a consenting of age adult.
Makes us slower. We're slower, huh? This might help explain my disdain for running, or why I could never actually outrun my brother as a child and would always end up eating dirt. So many younger sisters can totally relate to what I'm saying right now. Trying to outrun your older brother never worked. Like 100% of the time, that never worked. This study also explains how
a trans woman athlete with testosterone levels under 10 millimeters for 1 year will retain at least some of the physiological parameters that underpin athletic performance. This, coupled with the fact that trans women athletes are allowed to compete with more than 5 times the testosterone level of a cis woman, suggests that trans women have a performance advantage. Thank you! That's the goddamn truth. When trans women are allowed to compete in trans athletics or athletics in general, stop making it about trans. Jesus fucking Christ. So fucking annoying. I support trans rights, but when it's being shoved in our face like an unwanted cock, we're just like, stop. Like what? Okay, you know what I'm saying? Like when trans women are being allowed to compete against actual women with more than 5 to 10 times the amount of testosterone that an average woman would have, that's pretty fucked and unfair, to be honest.
The IOC's and many trans advocates' assumption that hormone replacement for at least a year mitigates any advantage a biological male might have.
Yes. This bullshit can piss off. I'll be right back. I gotta take a squirt. Beer squirt. There we are. What the fuck is this shit? I didn't open Discord. Seriously, is the live stream still going? Yes, it is. Okay, sweet.
They explain that transgender athletes will retain at least some physiological parameters that underpin athletic performance. This, coupled with the fact that trans women athletes are allowed to compete with more than 5 times the testosterone level of a cis woman, suggests that trans women have a performance advantage.
Mm-hmm. That's the goddamn truth. Okay, when trans women are allowed to compete with 4 to 5 times the amount of testosterone that cis women are allowed to compete with, it's kind of unfair. Like, you want to call me a homophobe or a transphobe or whatever the fuck phobe. Okay, it's the goddamn truth. Go and have a fucking cigarette, I tell you what.
This conclusion is more or less backed up by other research. For example, 2 more peer-reviewed papers on the matter
We got 4 minutes left.
mostly conclude the same thing. One says that even after changes to hormone levels in the body, findings suggest that strength may well be preserved in trans women during the first 3 years of hormone therapy. The other concludes that longitudinal studies examining the effects of testosterone suppression on muscle mass and strength in transgender women consistently show very modest changes, where the loss of lean body mass, muscle area, and strength typically amount to approximately 5% after 12 months of treatment. Thus, the muscular advantage enjoyed by transgender women is only minimally reduced when testosterone is suppressed. So yeah, I guess that kind of explains why transgender MMA fighters pulverize their female opponents. Violence
No shit.
against women at the hands of men. That's a big no-no. Unless, of course, you're taking hormones, in which case, then it's okay.
Yes, Sydney Watson's edgy sense of humor. Violence against women at the hands of men is not appropriate unless you're a transgendered athlete and you're competing in the MMA, and it's just supposed to be tolerated. See, regardless of whether or not what you want to say, like, yes, transgendered individuals were discriminated against for whatever fucking reason. Discord just decided to update without my permission. I don't give a fuck about that right now. Okay, back to the video. That's a little fucking weird. Anyways. Well, yeah, that's the goddamn truth. Like, you got some male pulverizing and beating the fuck out of a woman, but he chopped his dick off and got some hormone replacements. So now he identifies as female, and technically, even though he doesn't have ovaries, can identify as female because he doesn't have testosterone and he has titties and a fake pussy. Even though you got women everywhere who are screaming that having tits and a vagina doesn't make you a woman. So it's a very confusing time we live in.
I guess my question here is, if we know a little bit about this topic, but we don't know enough and more research needs to be done, then why are we using female sports as the test arena?
Thank you. No, that's the truth. Like, there would surely have to be other methods for studying this topic exclusively. Like, I agree with Sydney Watson. Why is it, King Cobra fam, why is it that this is the only place in which these theories are being tested out?
We have these endless conversations about what's fair while simultaneously and really sadly, actually, if we're being honest about it, completely overlooking the needs of female athletes.
When you overlook the needs / fairness and wants of female athletes because trans women are more important than actual women, it's sort of like a slap in the face to women who've had to face gender oppression. So it's like when vegans fucking throw the biggest bitch fit about you eating meat, but they themselves kill plants, which take food out of the animals, which then kills animals, and the fucking food they make pollutes the sky. You're just sitting there going, you're no better than the rest of us. Yeah, the asshole with the heart of gold telling it like it is. Ooh.
These conversations always appear to revolve around fairness for trans athletes, but not their biological counterparts. And
yeah, that's the bitch of it. It's like, let me just sip on this. Oh, look. Yes. Monster Energy. That's the goddamn truth. Like, transgendered individuals want to bitch about equality, but it's like you're literally living in a society that takes equality away from the gender you're trying to be. just so you could turn around and bitch about the fucking gender equality bullshit. You're a fucking hypocrite. Look, you want to talk about equality? You don't see straight cis people having a parade. Like, I don't need a fucking parade to celebrate my sexuality. I don't need to have fucking 10 different pronouns to fucking celebrate being straight for of age pussy. It's the fucking truth. I don't need some fucking parade to glorify that crap. And the reason why they have those parades is because they've had to face discrimination for so long. That's why they get to have those fucking parades, you fucking asshole. Like, even though we live in a society where, oh, fuck me, that's the, dude, after sipping on some Bud Light Platinum, oh, sugary goodness, sweet Monster Energy, yes! Mm. Mm. Diabetes and crack in a can. Monster Energy. Just busting balls, come down. No, but seriously? Oh, yeah, that's the one. Yes. Mm. 1 second. Yes. Monster Energy is your boy Cobra's favorite energy drink. That's tasty. I don't buy them as often as I used to. I've slowed down on my energy drink consumption, but that shit's tasty, dog. It's so bad for your health, but it tastes so fucking good.
That honestly is a huge problem. I always try to approach these topics fairly and with a degree of empathy, but
Yeah, I feel that, Sydney. I try to approach these topics with empathy for both. Like a topic like this, I want to approach it with empathy for both trans people and for cis women. But the problem with doing that is you're going to end up pissing off both sides with your talking points. So it's like,
when it comes to this, I am finding it harder and harder to understand the logic behind many of these decisions. There's nothing fair or equal about pitting women against opponents who have a completely different set of biological advantages.
That's the truth. When you're pitting people against each other, when the males have an unfair biological advantage over women who have a biological disadvantage.
This isn't a matter of women's bodies being different to one another, in that some are taller, some are shorter and fatter and thinner, and this impacts the way that they compete against each other. It's a matter of male and female bodies being very different, and that has a tremendous impact on athletic performance.
Thank you! That's the goddamn truth. It's not a matter about women who are taller, shorter, fatter, skinnier. Okay, it's a matter of women and men are genetically different, even though they think the same. And therefore, when you have transgendered females competing against cis, non-binary, binary, whatever I can't even keep track of the fucking terms anymore. It's fucking stupid. You can't be like, you're a girl, you're a dude, you identify as a chick, you identify as a dude. Okay, cool, man.
Laurel Hubbard illustrates this point down to the ground. And while I do feel, like I said, a sense of empathy for people who are transgender, who play sport, who love what they do and just want to play but don't feel that they fit in anywhere anymore, I can't help but feel that overlooking the negative effects on biological women is a huge disservice to...
And this is where the trickiest part of the argument comes into play, YouTube. It's like, if you don't feel like you belong, why would you associate with that group? Because people can't help the way they feel. That's just human nature. And as long as you're not a sick fuck, who cares? I'll drink to that.
The female population as a whole. And this is having a negative effect on women. I think we can say to some extent that some of the people who argue otherwise are either malicious or willfully ignorant. In the end, and I will say this again, I will say this till I'm blue in the face, if we admit that we just don't know enough about most of this topic, and there's not enough research here, which many scientists, many researchers agree that there is not enough research being done, then I don't know why we are using the female arena as the place to test the theory.
Exactly. That's the truth, you two. If you don't have enough research on the subject, why are we basing our opinions on anything? And like, research can suggest other opinions because you might have the controversial side of it where like someone else says, I know how this side identifies, but I'm a part of that group, but this is how I identify in my opinions. So research can be inconclusive at that point.
Because it appears that all we're doing is cheating biological women out of opportunities, and in the worst case, putting them at risk. Now,
that's so true. Cheating biological women out of their rights and putting them at risk. Well, bitching because you're trans and you don't have rights. Holy shit. When both sides have been fucking oppressed, and then the other side that fucking bitches about oppression is talking about this crap, I'm like, dude, you're a male oppressing women at the end of the fucking day. What the fuck are you bitching about? Talking about how your rights are oppressed? Fuck you, dude. Because you'd never fucking see this argument on the other side where it's like, oh, hey, this woman identifies as a man, therefore she wants to play in men's sports. You'd never see that crap. Why is it always the transgender athletes or dudes turning into females?
before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder that you can download Surfshark VPN using the link in the description. When you do, you receive 83% off and 3 extra months free. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Is this topic actually as crazy as I think it is? What
Not really.
do you make of this Olympic decision with Laurel Hubbard? Do you think that it was right? Do you think that it was wrong?
I think that's kind of fucked up. Like, just automatically going for the whole, well, I'm sorry, honey, but she's trans. That trumps fucking you being a female and working your ass off.
What do you think about transgender athletes participating in women's sports? What do you think?
You know, I don't give a shit about women participating in transgendered women, whatever the fuck she said. I don't give a fuck about transgendered women participating in women's sports, provided that they're not having an unfair advantage over it, and everyone, including the women that were born women, are treated just as fairly. Like, if both the trans woman and the woman who was born woman are being treated the same with the same fairness, then hey, I'm not here to judge.
We should do with transgender athletes? Should they have their own league? What's the solution?
Yes. Transgendered athletes should have their own league. I've been saying it for a couple months.
Solution here? And what do you generally make of this issue overall?
This fucking issue makes my head hurt, and I'm like, I'm glad this fucking video's over.
As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so. Just be respectful about it. And I will see you guys next time.
Yes.
There's a certain
I bet you will, Sydney. I bet you will see us next time. YouTube, 2 hours of this crap. I took a 17-minute video and managed to make a 2-hour video response. I don't do that intentionally. It's just there's a lot of fucking shit to uncover. There's a lot of subject topics. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of fucking shit. Like when you start talking about this thing that leads to the topic of that, and that topic leads to the topic of this and that, and then eventually you've completely lost all fucking subject matter of the original conversation because now the conversation is somewhere else, and that's the goddamn truth. I'll catch you laters.